You on Philippians too?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But yeah, so you see there the compilation, and I often wondered, and I don't know, I took that clip from them speaking with Mike Bickle, from Stephen Kozar's video.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't think they have. I'm almost positive they took that video off of their channel. I mean, it's quite embarrassing that you're up there defending Mike Bickle like that, and then within what, a month and a half, maybe 2 months, everything just the dam erupts and everything it breaks loose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you see that's the same problem as Dr. Brown, because Dr. Brown's test for discerning or testing a false teacher is basically one point. I know him, I like him, and I've had dinner with him. And if you pass that test, and that's the same with Bickle, and they did take all those videos down, and the problem there is that sitting right under the nose of all these people who believe in discernment and prophecy and words of knowledge was a predator in their midst that they didn't discern. It's a big problem.
Yeah, big problem. And that's a good point to bring home, Rick. These people are supposed to have the gift of discernment. These people are supposed to have the gift of prophecy. God speaks to them all the time, and yet God did not warn them about a predator, like you said, an actual predator right there in their midst. Same thing with Robert Morris, by the way. And nobody really nobody knew about Robert Morris. You had Troy Black prophesying really good stuff about Gateway and Robert Morris throughout the years. He never nothing negative there. So the burden of proof that these guys are prophets fall on them. They have to they're the ones that have to prove that they are actually prophets.
Exactly. And I mean, can you think of one historical event that you and I have lived through? COVID, the most recent, the attempted assassination of President Trump. None of them have any insight into what's coming ahead, but they'll know all about the next season that God is taking the church through. I was watching a prophet from Bethel, and she said, she had this encounter with God, and she saw the lightning come off his robes and blah, blah, blah. And the Lord told her it's a time to gaze upon him, and he's going to release love. Where is that in Scripture? And why would he tell them these very important seasons, apparently, that the church is going through? But he can't tell us, what's going to take place in the world tomorrow that's basically going to change the way that the world is. After, the pandemic, a lot of things changed in the world. Didn't see it coming. And Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And Chris Vallotton once gave a false prophecy. He said there's going to be a huge revival in Russia, and that they're going to come up with a new make of motor vehicle. That obviously hasn't come to pass, and he never saw the war. Just crazy.
Wow. Yeah. I tell you, it's really just it's mind-boggling that they can come up with these weird prophecies and always prophesy about really good things, but never foresee the disasters that come upon the church and the world as a whole.
Exactly.
So yeah, it just really bad stuff. All right, so let's that's how they are established, right? So let's talk about point number 2. And you know what? I'm looking at the time, and you and I may not get through every single point, so I'm going to make sure that I put a link to the article down in the YouTube description, just in case we don't. This is a really good conversation. I don't want to shorten, I don't want to, rush it to get to the other points. So let's go ahead and talk about how false teachers exploit the weaknesses of others. And I have a passage of scripture that I'd like to read first, Rick, and then I'd like us to kind of just break it down a little bit, okay? So this is 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 9. It says, "But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty, for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power. Avoid such people, for among them are those who creep into households and capture weak women, burdened with sins and led astray by various passions, always learning and never never able to arrive at a knowledge of the truth. Just as James and Jambres opposed Moses, so these men also oppose the truth. Men corrupted in mind and disqualified regarding the faith, but they will not get very far, for their folly will be plain to all, as was that of those two men. Let's go ahead, Rick, and break this passage down a little bit. First of all, the one thing that I want to mention about this passage is that when he's describing, in this list here in the first few verses, lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, some people might think that that's the world we live in, and in a sense it is. But he's describing false teachers in this text. That's who he's describing, and it fits false teachers to a T. I think of one of the words that jumps out to me is abusive, right? I don't know if you've ever read Bully Pulpit by Michael Kruger, Dr. Michael Kruger. That is a really good book if any of you guys out there can get a hold of it. Robin and I we've used some of the stuff in there, but we were actually going to do an entire book review on it. But it's a great book. It's called Bully Pulpit. And that, I think of the Mark Driscolls. I even think of the Chris Valentins, because I know from talking to people who were members of Bethel that Chris Valentin was rather abusive. So anything else that you wanna discuss there, Rick?
Yeah. So just one little thing there. We often hear that people with a form of godliness but deny the power are people who are against the gifts and healings, etc. We have a form of godliness. We sit in our pews. We liturgical, and we don't really go wild. So poor us, we're missing out on the move of God. But actually, as you've explained, it is referring to false teachers. And if you want to go ahead to Matthew 7, verse 21 to 23, the passage we know so well, people will, let me just find the passage then, Matthew 7. So Matthew 7, 21 to 23. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and do many mighty works in your name? And I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. So that is, these people, one could say, actually had a form of godliness. And their form of godliness was what we see in the NAR and hyper-charismatic churches and some charismatic churches. So it's just an interesting point